Nate's going to speak to us tonight about UFOs, media and popular culture, a history of manipulation. And for those of you who don't know, Nate's background is in media, as in a teacher, teaching high school students media. Right. Okay, so Nate's going to be discussing the broadcasting of the X-Files, make people believe they had a UFO experience, or simply enable them to talk freely about it. Does our pop culture art imitate life, or do our UFO experiences imitate pop culture? So here we are. Please, thank you, welcome, Nate Odger.
Thank you. Well, Cheryl already introduced me. I'm Nate. I've been with UFO Research Queensland for 54 years now. Yeah, it's oil of Olay. So my background's in media production and journalism. I did a little bit of work at ABC and Channel 7 and things like that, but what I was always most interested in was the theory behind it, how it all works. Then I became a teacher, and I've been teaching media and film and TV for a while. Unemployed at the moment though, but still a teacher. Any jobs? Any principals here? Okay. So when I started to put this together, I had an idea of what I wanted to say, but it became such a monumental task, like to try and factor in everything I wanted to say. It became impossible. So this is just the bare bones. And I'm going to start by teaching you basically what I teach the kids when I teach them in school, film and TV. Okay? So UFOs in the media and popular culture. So first of all, we have to define what the media is. So most people think of the news media, but media is actually the plural form of the word medium. All right, so you've all probably seen Patricia Arquette in that TV show. She's a medium, she speaks to ghosts. It's the same thing. She's the person that stands in between one and the other, the middle. So many mediums make media. So when people say the media, they're usually talking about the news media, newspapers, TV, radio, internet. But it's a lot more than that. Okay, information is sent from a sender to a receiver. That's how information works. What carries that information is the medium. So Patricia Arquette in this case. In the following example, the sender, who is a man, transmits information to the receiver, which is a dog, through the medium of speech. Okay, see, I told you. There's the man. I love cake. The medium carrying the speech there is, well, the medium carrying the message is speech, and the dog is the receiver of the message. Right? That's just the most basic example you can think of. Okay, that's simple enough. However, the message that's being sent is never quite the same as the one that's received. This is due to differences in people and the way we all think. We're all different. We all interpret things differently, depending on our background and our nature. We see the world in a unique way, and we can only hope that the message that we're sending is the same one that is being received. Usually it's fairly close. My dog loves liver, so he says, "You are having your favourite meal tonight," and the dog thinks, "Oh good, lasagna." Okay. So the message, it's the same message, he's saying it, the dog's hearing it, but the interpretation is different. Okay, so all is not lost. People from the same culture can rely on similar interpretations when they try to communicate their ideas. These ideas are called connotations. So, if I say lasagna, you know what I mean. It's quite simple. Yeah. If you were from another country, maybe it would mean something completely different. I know in Japan they have cider, and we think of cider, we think, oh, apples, you know, but no, that's not what it is at all. It's more like lemonade. That's how we call it cider. So someone says, "Would you like a cider?" And you're thinking, "Oh, apple cider, oh, Scrumpy Jacks, yes please." And then they give you something else. It's like, what? You insult my culture. And then there's a gunfight. Okay, so connotations are these ideas that we have. In simple terms, a connotation is an idea or an image that pops into your head when you look, hear, or think of something. For example, what pops into your head when you see this image? Sour? Yeah. Fish? Lemon is the obvious one. Any others? Sure, yeah. Real short, yeah.
Stewie from Family Guy.
Stewie? Yeah, Stewie, of course. I see it. Ooh. So Cheryl's taste buds are doing strange things. And now she might also think about that time in Hawaii when there was that man that brought her a drink that had some lemon in it, and what happened that night. And, okay, so these are connotations. These are things that pop into her head. So some of the connotations might be sour, lemonade, yellow, a car that doesn't work, fruit, clip art, computers, the sun even, because it's yellow. Many, many more. They're all different, but hopefully we all look at that and we think that's 11. So once we've got these connotations down pat, we can start to build our message. We all learn how to do this when we're kids, when we're little babies, but it becomes more complicated as we get older, and we have better tools in which to do it. So now that we have similar ideas about a certain symbol, we can put a message together. Notice there is no language involved here at all, just symbols. Okay, so what might this message be? Fish pie with ice cream?
High Alamo is delicious.
Delicious, alright. Notice that none of those words are in there. So we could say pie plus ice cream equals delicious. Did anyone not get that? Couple? Yeah. I don't know if you're being funny. Maybe this is what you thought. UFO cross cotton wool parallel bars tiger? I mean, why not? You know, like, it's semi-valid, isn't it? Not in context. It doesn't make any sense when it's put together in that context, but the symbols themselves. If you are from space, you don't know what any of that stuff is. Or if you are from space and have spent decades researching this, neglecting your family and consulting ancient texts for similar symbols. The ancient ones will come again and bringeth the light which shineth before them on the eve of midsummer. All hail he who hid the mighty carrot behind the sofa of trickiness. Careth not where the remote for the TV hath been taken. $5 for beer, I'll get you, see if I don't. Because, you know, they're from a completely different culture. They've got no basis on which to base these ideas. They don't know that's a pi or that's a plus symbol or anything. They don't know anything about it, but they're applying what they reckon to a particular image. So we all have to be part of the same culture for these connotations to work. So things to look out for. Colours. Colours come with their own connotations. Blue can be cold or wet. Red can be hot or bloody. Black might be evil or death. White might be purity. In some cultures it's the colour of death. Symbols and icons, e.g. the skull and crossbones. And familiarity. Where have you seen that before? What does it make you feel? Alright, so we've got a little image down here. I happened to type in the words and someone had already done it for me. So this is something like a skull, and these are something like chilies. But the way it's laid out, it looks like the skull and crossbones kind of situation, so think of all the different meanings that are happening here. What can we think of? It might be pirates, it might be poison, death, really, really hot chilies, Mexican restaurants. Think of all the other ideas that pop into your head. Now, if you think about Mexican restaurants, you might be thinking of Corona as well. You might be thinking, I need a beer to go with that super hot chili dish with the skull on it. You know, so that's it. That image there doesn't say any of that. It's just the ideas that are popping into your head. So we've attributed meaning to those symbols. Right. So here's another example of attributing meaning and connotations to things through our culture. Which one of these guys is the bad guy?
Is he smoking?
Yeah. He's very relaxed there.
No, he's sad. He's got a long time.
I think it'd be fair to say the majority of people would pick Lizard Man here. And why is that? Because he's scaly, he's got large pointy teeth, he looks ferocious. Yeah, he might actually, well, he's wearing, yeah, he might work in an ice cream shop, really. That guy could be a serial killer. But because he's a lizard with giant ferocious teeth, we think he's a carnivore, he's dead, he's dangerous, reptiles can't be trusted. Yeah. So at the start I mentioned pop culture, so I thought I might explain what that is for people who don't know. It's just short for popular culture. Basically means the art that our culture produces, which is Western, well for most of us, Western Australian art. You may have heard that life imitates art, but art also imitates life. This is why consideration of pop culture, when we talk about these things, is so important. Pop culture, you can see it in comics, movies, music, TV, shows, t-shirts, video games, toys, everyday speech. Do we all know what that is? Yeah. But why do we know that? Because it's in our pop culture now. We all know that that old police box from the 1950s is now a time travelling machine. It's part of science fiction. Because now it's part, so you might see that in a comic, in a movie, on a t-shirt, in a video game, a toilet. People say TARDIS, you know what they mean. People say a police box, a large blue box, it might just pop into your head. If you know anything about Doctor Who at all. Some of you won't, that's fair enough. So the reason to distinguish pop culture from our everyday living culture is that it changes with time. It's a reflection of where we are as a Western English-speaking culture, and during that specific period of time. So this racist caricature over here is from the 1930s, I think it was. He's Sambo. He was actually a real popular character. He had adventures of Sambo, you know, and that was fine back then. Of course, you do that today as well. And here we have stormtroopers from Return of the Jedi, biker scouts, sorry, from Return of the Jedi riding like a cat. Down here, you can't see it, but it says YouTube, cat-obsessed YouTube pop culture meets Star Wars. Thank you, internet, because that's basically what it is. That's very much part of our pop culture nowadays, putting cats and everything because it's hilarious, and using Photoshop and just making funny jokes. Of course, back in Sambo's day, that sort of thing didn't exist. You just picked up your racist comic of the month and had a look at what the noble savage was doing. Alright, so cranky man. Okay, but before we can get to the UFOs, we have to do an exam. Let's get your pens and papers out. What is this? Anyone?
George Jetson.
George
I was going to say, it looks like the Jetsons flying guitar.
Anyone else?
I thought that.
Someone said spaceship, someone said UFO. Yeah. Is it that? Anyone else?
Barbecue.
I think you all understand what it's trying to be though, don't you? Okay, it's not a UFO, or a flying saucer, or a spaceship, or a random shape. So what is it? I'm not telling you. You might have guessed, based on the connotations of that particular image, what you think it's supposed to be. When you put those connotations together into an idea, a message or a symbol or anything else that we transmit through a medium, i.e. a message, it is called a representation. Now this is the most important word to take away from today. The most powerful concept in media. So you've got to remember that word. Okay? Because media, everything you see and hear and witness is built on representations. So this is a representation of a UFO, or a flying saucer, or a spaceship, or wherever else you want to say it is. It's not reality. This is a representation of an angry red alien / disgruntled transport department person. Not actually an angry red alien. But this is a photo of an owl with an upside down head, so of course it is real and not a representation. Yeah, Jim. Wrong, it is also a representation. Because you see it flying around the room, is it glaring at your eyes? No. Because it isn't real, it's a representation. Just because it's a photo doesn't mean it's real. That's a two-dimensional image from a glimpse in time that has been edited, converted, it's not real. So the messages sent to us through the media are full of these representations. None of them is real. This includes everything you see and hear from TV, movies, radio, internet. Okay, just think about I think that's self-explanatory. Before I go into that, just think about a movie like Independence Day. Right? So you have these massive flying saucers coming over the cities, shooting out these beams, blowing up the entire city. How many people died in those movies? Jared? Anyone else? None. No people died in those movies because they're not real. There was no alien spaceship that did that, you know? But we're so indoctrinated into thinking fiction and the media is kind of some sort of reality that we mix up our messages. We sort of say, oh, can't watch that movie, there are people having sex in it. No, they're not. Unless it's a porno, you know, they're not actually doing it, they're just actors. There's no violence in these movies, they're just actors. They're just shooting blanks at each other, you know. So next time you get upset at your child's media teacher for showing them inappropriate films, just remember we're studying them because they're not real. They're actually messages put together by people in offices. They go, we'll get this connotation and this representation and this connotation and put them all together in a big long line and tell a story. So let's look at the news. The news is just another message created by a sender. I'm not saying it's that guy. The sender decides what you should see and should hear. He decides what angle or bias to put on it. You're only seeing representation of a reality. It's the same way with the movies as well. They want you to feel happy, they'll change it so the characters are lighthearted and they're telling jokes and nothing serious happens. They want you to be scared, they'll have scary music and, you know, black, lots of darkness and people screaming. Going back to the news, what it doesn't show you, it's not unbiased, though it's supposed to be. You won't hear both sides of the story in a fair manner. The sender will choose their images and their audio to carefully to construct a message that influences you. This is called audience positioning. Same thing with movies and TV shows. Once again, they want you to feel something. If they want you to feel excited, make your heart beat faster, then they'll put in lots of car chases and explosions and people leaving out buildings and catching one another in just in the nick of time. Of course, none of that is real. They've just learnt the tricks over the decades and centuries. They know how to make people feel certain things. So then the Hollywood people took their techniques and they went to the news media and they went, look what we can do. Oh, you've invented TV? Well, we already know how to make people feel a certain way about Russia or Germany. Let us help you. So then they can, the government's in control, they can make the media make people feel whatever they like. Okay, so let's say, this example, Rupert Murdoch, he doesn't believe in UFOs. So you won't see news items that take the subject seriously. He's a media mogul. But when they do show them, they'll play the X-Files music over the story. They usually start with that, and then they'll have some guy's voice who's like, they say the truth is out there. They won't get their serious newsreader to do it. They'll get their comic one who interviews dogs who would be a beauty pageant. They'll get him to do it. So they'll play the X-Files music. They'll carefully choose sound bites to imply the witnesses are a bit mad, so they might get Cheryl saying something rational, but then they'll edit it so it just gets the middle bit going, oh, I don't know, I think they could be real, and influences the audience at home to think that maybe she's a bit of a nut. Nutty there. They'll bring up irrelevancies like the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot, they'll just throw that into a sentence there, like, these people look for UFOs, but have they had any luck looking for Loch Ness Monsters as well? And then Cheryl would be like, oh, I don't know, it could be real. She'd be like, hey, I didn't say that, I said it about UFOs. And they just mix it up. They can do whatever they like. They won't draw any conclusions, but might say something patronising at the end, like, beam me up, Scotty, like, well, if the truth is out there, and beam me up then, because I'm back to you at the studio, and then the anchors will laugh and go, that's all we have time for today, So, this is what they're always going to do until the sources land, or the White House lawn, I guess. So the effect is you're being positioned, i.e. put somewhere to believe something. A, UFOs aren't real, and B, those who believe in them are crazy. A little bit more on the role of music. Music has connotations, once again. So using the X-Files or Twilight Zone music has these effects. says that a UFO report is on the same level of reality as TV, i.e. it's fiction. Says that people who watch the UFO, who see UFOs watch shows like this, therefore they're living in a fantasy land, and they want the TV shows to be real, and they're running around with Ghostbusters equipment on their back or something like that. And it tells the audience it's okay to watch the news story because the journalists know it isn't real and it's all just a bit of fun at the end, you know. So don't switch off because we're talking about UFOs because we're actually making fun of people. So that makes mum and dad at home think, oh, I'll watch this, you know, and they won't switch over the news. So they just use the connotations of the X-Files or Twilight Zone music because as soon as they play it, people go, oh, that's the show about people who are crazy. You know, so that's how it works. This isn't UFO related, unfortunately, but you might remember this is during the fall of Iraq, the second Iraq War by the other President Bush. Bush 2, Iraq War 2, The Revenge, and we all know this. This is, oh look at these guys, they're all celebrating the fall of Saddam, they've knocked over his statue and they're jumping up and down on it, because that's really going to work against a giant bronze statue. And here's a longer shot of a crane pulling the statue down, and there's the crowd. You can just make out a couple of soldiers in there, American soldiers standing around. So this is more popular culture, popularised, and like all you need to do is show this to some people around the world and they'll know exactly what you're referring to, even though it doesn't have any dates or many words. And here's some more people like, yeah, we're so happy that the statue's coming down. More pop culture, oh look, the statue coming down, and blood, because that symbolises, you know, stuff, connotations of badness. So there's some smoke coming out. They're playing on people's emotions here. Okay, now here's the reality of it. It's a pretty bad photo, which I apologise for. Now, the statue is here, the crowd of people is here, and here are American tanks, soldiers, Humvees, and the whole thing is empty except for the small crowd of people that they've put there to stand, to jump up and down on the statue while they film it and take photos. And then they give it to the media, they take it home and go, look, the Iraqis are so happy that we killed their leader and have destroyed their country and they don't have any water or electricity. They're jumping up and down for joy. Okay, so this is just one way the media can do that. Okay, there's some circles, tanks circled in yellows, a small crowd there, etc. In contrast, see it's empty, this is what the place looks like when it's full. This is like a couple of years ago, a celebration. So that is lots of people. This is not lots of people. You can see how they work now. That's a really famous example, that's why I chose it. But they do this every day, just in smaller ways. Okay, the darts are instructing me to continue. Brief and shallow history of the representations of UFOs, i.e. flying saucers, and aliens throughout the modern era as seen in the media and pop culture of the time. But first, any questions about what we just went through? I know it was fairly speedy and a bit dense and lots of ideas there.
So it's a matter of don't believe what you see or hear.
Basically, be critical of what you see and hear. That's what we try to
So
teach.
we're being brainwashed.
Yes. Yes. Brainwashing kind of implies like a deliberate sort of act, like let's brainwash people, I think. But the people who are part of the media, they aren't James Bond villains who are, except Rupert Murdoch, I guess. But most of the people there aren't James Bond villains going, how are we going to make people think? Yeah. They're just like, they've got this idea in their head, like, this is what people want to see, this is what people want to make fun of, and how do we do that? And if someone came, if a young journalist said, hey, I've got a really serious story about a UFO landing here, can we put it on the news? I'd give it to an editor, and the editor would go, all right, where's my X-Files music, and some special effects, and it's kind of like the blind leading the blind, or the stupid leading the stupid. They all work together to perpetuate this cycle. And who's really in charge? Like, they're all scared of losing their jobs, so I guess the only person who's really to blame is the person who's right at the top, which is why I had that picture before. While he's doing it, yeah, maybe he is being tasked to brainwash. But it's been happening since the 40s, since after the big UFO flap and Roswell and all that sort of thing, when the military changed their mind about how they were going to portray it. Used to be in the newspapers that, you know, sources seen out of such and such, and the military would be like, oh, yes, we're looking into it. But after a while, when they realised that they couldn't catch these things and they felt defenceless, they sort of decided to start mocking everyone who could see them. So all they had to do was go to the media and go, now we don't want you to take these stories seriously anymore, we want you to mock people and call them crazy. And that's where it started, it's been going ever since. Right? If anyone's ever watched Stargate SG-1, you know, they made the fake show Wormhole Extreme, because they thought, if anyone really did find out about Stargate, we could point to this show, Wormhole Extreme, and say that they're just nutters who are just copying our TV show. It's disinformation. They take some real information and they just change it around. Like I know through my video editing skills that I can take the same 4 scenes, move them around to create completely different messages, depending on the order that they go in. We use things like filmic space as well, where I can walk out that door there and appear through there, but because of the way the camera's facing, you wouldn't know that this is the same room. You think that that area lies beyond there. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing as walking into the TARDIS. They walk into the TARDIS, all of a sudden they're in the console room. Obviously they don't carry the console room around with them and set it up everywhere they go. That's in a studio. But for the person watching at home, there is no way you can know that. And I'll get to you in a second. The other thing I saw when we were working at ABC was the guy who does the financial report. He said something completely inappropriate in mid-spiel, like some sort of personal comment about a public figure, and they edited it right in front of me so seamlessly that he just kept talking and you would never know that there was a comment there. He was talking about the AS index and the money thing, and I don't know finance, but yeah, and then they took out the comment and it just kept going. And that was, when you see that on ABC News, that's supposed to be live TV, right? It's not live, but it was pre-recorded. So. Now, who would have thought that on the covers of magazines back then there were UFOs flying around? Like, what people want you to believe is that this only started back in the 40s and then it petered out around about the 60s and that's it. But this shows that it's been going on a long, long time. I can tell you that all the scare ship sightings were actually blimps or zeppelins and not UFOs, but the behaviour is exactly the same as what we call sources. You know, the same thing with the strange occupants and the doing strange things. No one ever found out who the scare ships belonged to. 1918. See, these are clearly sources, they're not airships. There's the occupants in there, at war with the invisible. So these sources can turn invisible. 1918. So it's not a modern idea. Here's one, lifting up a large ship. It's not quite the Titanic. 1926. So even back then, people were obsessed with alien lives and spherical and saucer shapes.
H.G. Wells.
Yes. Yeah. War of the Worlds, of course, but had tripods, not saucers. 1930. He's just an astronaut. Looks like he's lassoing one UFO from another. Amazing stories. Here's a pyramid. Tetrahedra of space! And it's shooting out beams. 1931. Once again, long before the modern era of, oh, the triangles are man-made and the circles are alien. This is long before then. So you've got to wonder where these ideas came from. Did they come from someone saw something and said something and then it made its way into science fiction? Or did people see these things and then it became part of our popular culture and become part of our witness experiences? And here, this is the first, as far as people can ascertain, the first image of a abduction and the lying on the table being experimented on by bug-eyed aliens. This is the first time it's appeared in popular culture, 1935. So long before the abductee sort of era. Correct me if I'm wrong about any of the UFO stuff. I'm more of a media guy than UFO. He's being held down and she's being experimented on, and they've got the big bright light. And here's a version of War of the Whales. So we've got our tripod there. We've got the portholes all around it, and the idea of life on Mars has been around for centuries, where the astronomer looked at Mars canals with his telescope and he said, oh, there's canals there must be water there must be life, and so ever since then people have been imagining what sort of life would be on there. H.G. Wells came up with the green Martians, which have since made it all the way through our popular culture. Buck Rogers. So a man who fell asleep in modern times and woke up in the future. And in the future, of course, everyone has flying tugboats. No, once again, a very UFO-looking thing with the portholes. The raid from Mars, there's something H.G. Wells inspired there, but it looks like it's got about 6 legs. Notice the aliens here have the large heads. That means what? What's the connotation of a creature with a large head? They're intelligent. That's right. So what better way to show how much smarter they are than us than by giving them a large head? Here's another one with a large head and large eyes, and he's got a captive woman there. So, oh look, old people going in, young people coming out. So it's doing some sort of experiment. Right, there's a kind of a quite familiar, this face. Yeah, the large forehead and the large eyes. 1943, so Roswell was 45, 47? Yeah, so it's still quite a bit before that. Here's just an ad for, was it oil? Something. Anyway, but a pretty pathetic representation of a Martian here. But very much in line with the whole little green men, not taking it seriously just yet, just making them completely fanciful, and let's just stick things on them, yeah, like trumpets coming out of their heads, why not? Yeah. A green man. So here we have one of the first, they look just like us, but slightly different. The Star Trek syndrome. 46. 47. Here we have proper sources now. Will the ancient gods of Egypt and other lost civilizations come back to Earth in time to avoid an atom war? Is the eye of Horus still watching us? 1947, so a lot of the time we think of these ideas, ancient civilizations merging with UFOs and things like that, as kind of very modern ideas, but they're not. They've been around for decades, since before many of us were born, even. The man from Mars was mystified. Here we go again with the Martians with the googly eyes and the giant head, but physically frail. That gives us some hope. Because he's disproportionate, he may be smart, but he's not as big as us. We can take him in a fight. And I think that's kind of the idea. That's how they portray Martians. 47. Here's a serious report. Following reports that a number of mysterious flying saucers had actually been seen landing in mountains near St. Maries, Idaho. First official effort to track one down, or the what is it's, was begun by the town mayor. Bob's an artist's conception of the now you see them, now you don't. The discs might look if they turn out to be man-made devices. So this is the era where they're still taking it seriously. They actually did not know what it was. No one was saying they were from space, no one was saying that they were military or they were hallucinations. So here's a pop culture. She's wearing a saucer-shaped dress, 1947. So there you go, 48. Here's some saucers approaching a plane. Oh, what's going to happen there? It's a bit vintage looking. Saucers approaching the Earth. The true story behind the strangest phenomena in history. This is a novel, not a novel, it's a book. Some of you might have it. Here's a military versus a fast spinning one. 1950, so this is the peak of, this is where the Cold War really takes off, 1950 onwards, so soon we'll start to see the relationship between the Russians and the UFOs. A flying saucer spelling game. It's fun for all. It's new as well, according to this, and it's for kids from 5 to 90. So here we see that saucers are becoming part of our pop culture. Now, if you can market a kids game with saucers in it, obviously people are that scared of them, and they're just like, oh yeah, commonplace, yeah, saucers here. So people walking down the street, they'd see a saucer shape, and immediately the connotation's there. So it didn't take long. From the 30s to the 50s, they're already part of our culture. They're everywhere. Even my 4-year-old daughter knows what they are. I just sort of said, you know what that is? It's your flying saucer. I didn't tell her that's what it was. Now here's the first movie, The Flying Saucer. What are they? Where are they from? Have you seen a flying saucer? And these people are running away terrified. Now, I don't believe there's any aliens or anything in this. It's just about the saucer itself. Because during that time, people still really didn't know what to make of them. They were a bit scared. These things came from above, not much like ballistic missiles from Russia, and they were just like, I don't know what it is, but it terrifies me, so I'm not in. Here we go with the little green men again. They're becoming more comical now, 1952. Oh, they're walking among us, we're not even noticing, they're just tourists. Martians. Funny little guys. Okay, so very much part of our culture. And spot on, yeah, this is exactly what aliens should look like. Eyeballs poking out of their heads, some sort of flower coming out of their ear. That's ridiculous. Another green man, the man from tomorrow. Now, this sort of alien is the type that would probably warn us about something, because the humanoids are very sort of, hey look, you and I kind of look the same, even though I'm green or I've got funny ears. But let me tell you a few things about what you're doing wrong on Earth. And that's usually the storyline that goes along with them. There we go. Canada builds a flying saucer. That happened in 1953, but that's common knowledge. Everyone knows that Canada did that.
1960.
Well, it says 1953 here. It's written on the front of the magazine, so it must be true. Look, there's even a hanger down there. Sources. Does this look familiar? Flying Saucers International, a non-profit organisation. Okay, so this is the first of the zines, what the kids call them these days. Is it ours? No, I think ours is coming up soon. 1954. Now, you'll notice that at some point we're going from these colour, glossy covers of things with fantastic flying saucers doing fantastic things to just like El Cheapo, black and white, yeah, whatever, as the interest wanes. Nexus, 1954. There's a little, I forget what his name is. You know, a Dembski, yeah, Dembski UFO over there. Hand drawn by someone. Cover by just fantastic universe science fiction, happy good time go. And there's a UFO crashing at the same time as shooting cars and rolling over them, because you know, if you're shaped like a wheel, you might as well roll over something as you're shooting. Just 2 for the price of 1. So once again, this is playing into the Cold War fears that you just be driving home like a good citizen, and they'll come out of nowhere and just shoot you and roll over you like a giant wheel. Australian saucer record. Do you know this one, Cheryl?
What's the, is it?
Did you draw that?
No.
It's a pyramid.
What's it called?
Australian saucer
I
record.
can't see
The official organ of the IT something. Here we go, a bit of titillation there, see, oh, like a bit of back. I'm surprised they got that past the census. 1955 though, so we're starting to get a bit more sensationalist. And are the sources space animals? Are they in fact animals and not machines? Yeah, still not quite sure. Here, an alien sharing a beer with an old sea dog. Oh, you know, once again, it's a comical looking thing. It's got giant ears and Like that's not going to cause fear at anyone. So they're mocking the aliens again. Here's our sort of my favourite Martian-looking character. He's looking at some Halloween kids going, oh my goodness, what planet have I landed on? Silly Martians. So now you see they're trying to take away the fear of aliens as well. They're trying to make them objects of ridicule. So if you believe in a guy with little antennas coming out of your head, or little green men, yeah, you must be crazy. Yeah, finally some different aliens to what we're normally seeing, playing poker. We have a robot, some sort of insect, mammals, giants, a lizard. So in 1959, they're already considering other forms. Here's an underwater one. Frogman. Oh my god, I didn't expect to see you here. A toy, 1960. Classic lines there. Yeah, nice. You know this one?
My favourite Martian.
My favourite Martian. There he is with the antennas and he's slightly green and yep, bit of fun. Now, if you actually came forward and said that no Martians are real and they hurt me, you know, people are just going to look at this TV show and go, why are you crazy? You've been watching too much of that TV. You know what I mean? Like, that's how they work. I put this one in because it was very Planet of the Apes, so I thought that was cool. I think these are applied to be humans here. Humans with sources in the future. 1966, more comical stuff here. Not serious anymore at all. And if you do take it serious, then you see how comical it is. Real. USSR finally admits flying saucers from outer space. That goes along with Canada built a flying saucer. That's one of those headlines. They look like the shepherds from the Bethlehem story there. And now we're leaving the nice, colourful 1960s paintings and going to boring photos. Yeah, it's pretty dodgy too. Flying saucer review, Valentich, I guess. Cessna and UFO, would that be it? 1979? Good. Ancient astronauts, pyramids of Egypt. That's pretty cool. I like that one. Of course, the connotations there are Egyptian. I don't need to tell you that, but you see how they work. Like 1985. Now this is my era. This is when I started seeing things like this, and yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? Do you know what movie that's from? Cocoon, is it? Lifting up the entire boat. This one's cool. If you haven't seen this, I recommend it. Batteries not included. And UFOs, or sources in this case, are little guys like that, and they're the aliens themselves. I think there is a big ship at the end, but they basically come down, there's a girl and a boy one, and then they have children in this apartment block, and they're all made out of machines, and yeah, it's cool. The little green men, here we go again. Now these are just undated ones I found, but once again, look at the ridiculous ears and the antennas and the green. They always have to put the ears, the antennas, and the green. No one's going to take you seriously if you see green men. You know this one? This is Barney Hill's drawing. Wearing a cap. And this is the movie that they made. A little bit different with the masks there, but pretty old movie, and that's pretty spot on to sort of what the graves look like now, isn't it? James Earl Jones there, 3 Darth Vader. The Flying Saucer, as I saw it, by Kenneth Arnold. No copy, 50 cents. Like he's even signed it. That's cool. Here's a model. It's got that sort of classic look. That's awesome look with the jets coming out the back. I think they put the jets on there because they can't conceive of any other way it can fly. Especially in the 50s, it's like, it must have jets on it to propel it forward. You can't just go in any direction. It's got to have a back and a front, surely. A few more here. Alien, sources destroying battleships, etc. Some comics. This is a really early one. This was back like early 30s, 20s. Got the jets on it once again. Yeah, it's his flying saucer. Oh, the most incredible story of modern times. You didn't know? Comics. The Man from Planet X. Yeah, this is one of the first an alien is coming to get you kind of movies. He's got the giant head. He's green. Before we get onto these, I'll show you some stuff. Right. I'll take that. Okay, so before we go any further on that, you want to notice right at the start what it said. Air raid siren. Warning. Take cover. Not quite duck and cover, but you see what I'm going. See where I'm going with that? Very Cold War air raid sirens. Look, the enemies are coming from above. They have technology we don't understand. They're going to take out your famous landmarks because that's. And then finally you have the alien masterminds taking the young couple aboard their ship and gloating, "This is our plan." And let's tell you all the details. Other than that, it's very War of the Worlds inspired, except sources are easier to animate than tripods. Survivors of a disintegrated solar system. Probably heard that 100 times before. Oh, no, they got melted. Thousands of miles in seconds. Yeah? Very familiar. Alright. So let's look at how it changed. So that was. I didn't put the date on that one. I forget what it was, but it was either late 50s, early 60s. This is 64? No, it's still there. From these humans who visited them. So humans end up being the destroyers. But without too many volumes, not much point. I'll show you.
That's a classic alien, isn't it?
Yeah.
Inside there.
Yeah, and if you see these other animated ones. See, that's, selenites. So once again, vegetable wells. They're more or less insects in this case. They destroy their entire base just to get out. Quite a mess. Is it true? Is the volume on here?
Easy.
Yeah, he's a journalist, but he always stumbles across stories about vampires and werewolves that no one ever believes in. And of course, the cops always try to stop him revealing any information. And if he does something like take photos like this, they'll probably be wiped by the. This is the forerunner to the X-Files, basically what the X-Files is based on. And I just put it in because I thought it was interesting, like one of the first, not the first invisible alien, but the way that the ship departs. so I've got quite a few others here. I don't know how much time we have, but basically, in the most recent alien movies like this, the UFOs will be extremely complex, huge, special effects budget, obviously. And the machines are very chunky and big, yeah. But they're not smooth, sleek shapes anymore. They're like that, bits and pieces coming out wherever. Yeah. Night skies. That's an abduction one from Betas from Mars. Which one's a good one? Look at the 1980s. Hangar 18. This is. So that's the saucer that crashed. We don't have time for a second. Sorry. There's also fire in the sky there. You've probably all seen that, haven't you? I just put in the. Once we have the light, and then you get hit by the light trick. So basically, the reason why I'm showing you is because of the depiction of the UFOs changes from decade to decade. So we started in the 50s with the sleek classic sources, and then they got more and more complex as the years went on. So in the 80s, they're actually quite chunky. In the 90s and the 2000s, they're ridiculous. They're like no sources that anyone's ever seen. No one is reporting sources that look like the ones from Independence Day because they're just...
With that movie there,
yeah.
Like, that was what you call a producer's right or whatever one is. So because from the time you got hit, the time it was released, and it was more or less your guess as good as mine of what really happened. But, the description of the producer made the vehicle of was wrong.
Yeah.
Because the vehicle themselves, it was solid. It wasn't like a barbecue type thing burning.
Yeah, well that's the idea. Like, say the producer of the movie can just make it look like whatever they like. See some depiction of aliens, like as Roy went through before. Some charts, different shapes of sources. There's a light bulb. Some spinning tops, some hats, high plates, all different looks. One of the oldest pictures of the tripods from War of the Worlds, as you can see, the top is very much saucery sort of shaped. There are legs there, but they're being destroyed. This is one of the first ever sort of alien movies. These are the Selenites once again from First Men in the Moon, but this is an old silent movie edition. So there's the Selenite king who's like, tell me more. Okay, so once again the big heads and the googly eyes. Gort from The Day the Earth Stood Still, coming out to teach mankind a lesson. Another beautiful ship. Close Encounters. ID4. My favourite. This is one of. Anyone know this one? Yep, Greatest American Hero. So this is when he gets his suit from the aliens to become a superhero. Once again, very similar to the Cocoon and Close Encounters ships. Now here is a modern portrayal of aliens that become entertainment now. So there's a show called When Aliens Attack, and it's kind of like, what would happen? What would really happen if aliens attacked? And what should we really do about it? So it's just popcorn fodder now. It's just entertainment. They're not taking it seriously. Here's some more, just a chart of different looking UFOs based on actual sightings. So can't really see any pattern to the shapes being reported there. They're just all very different. This is really good though. This is the alien timeline. So it shows how flying saucer craze begins 1947. Well, we know from what I've just shown you that it was long before then that they had sources in the media. So you can't blame Roswell for beginning it all. These things were being reported long before this even happened. What I would like to point out, as the goblins, is when we get to the abductions. So you go on here, Betty and Barney Hill abduction, 1961. Okay, Betty Andreasen abduction, and Travis Walton abduction, and all these abductions. Now, you notice that all the ones who do the abductions look the same? But they're all the same. Yeah. But the most important thing to take from this is look at all the other aliens that have been reported. Now, did we, looking at the movies and clips and everything we just saw, did we even see anything like this? Like this thing here. Like, how could someone invent that in their head after watching it on TV when it never existed on TV? In all those pictures I showed you going back to 1911, how many of the front covers of the magazines and the Buck Rogers comics had the greys in it? None. They had something similar, but they weren't them. So why do they report it again and again if they're just inspired by the media? This is what people are going to say to you. They're going to say, oh, you've just been watching too many TV shows. You've got this idea in your head. You had a bit of a dream, and then all these ideas came back to you, and that's where your abduction experience or contacting experience came from. Well, so what if that's true? Then why aren't we encountering dwarves like this all the time? Like it's just giant reptilian fairy robots. There's the three-eyed giant. There's the little devil. Oh, look, he's 3 inches tall. Insectoid, they're like the selenites, I guess. You could probably argue that that one's inspired by H.G. Wells, but the rest of them. So it really clearly shows that it's not life imitating art in a lot of these cases, but art imitating life, where especially with the Greys, the abduction experiences came first. They weren't in the media before that. Even though there were portrayals of UFOs and aliens, they were vastly different. They were mostly just tall, green people with a staff in their hand and a cap on their head or something like that. Like otherwise, why don't people see Gort from The Day the Earth Stood Still, taking them into their source? Why don't they see the Martians from Earth versus the Flying Saucers? I think that's... Here's some other close-ups. A few minutes left. So that's the original invaders from Mars, Martian leader. He's got the big head once again because he's smart. Other giant brain creatures. Some humanoids. E.T., yeah. Here's the grey now. Obviously the Close Encounters aliens are inspired by the true stories, so that's why they look like them. Don't see many people reporting these guys from They Live. Star Trek creatures, basically people with funny ears and lovely aliens, E.T., Starman, Cocoon, The Abyss. So these are all friendly aliens. Just some good. These are fairly new ones. Star Wars aliens. Once again, not often reported. You'd wonder why. It says that one of the most popular movies in the world, nearly everyone has seen it. Why aren't they reported? Why aren't people being abducted by Greedo? Yeah. Men in Black creatures. Pretty good looking guys. And xenomorphs. Yeah. Reptilian. That's from B, one of the visitors. Yeah, here are some bad aliens. Very similar sort of head shapes and eyes. Hollywood imitates Hollywood. They go, oh, what do these aliens look like? Let's just change them slightly, and there we go. Obviously, this is meant to look like a human, though. Here are some greys. Stargate, grey. Stargate talking to Hitler. The figurine.
Did the grey get autograph from Hitler?
The other way around. Some lizard men. Here's an old lizard man attacking attacking Kirk. And these are the Slee stack from Land of the Lost. It's back in the 60s as well. And that's about it. No worries. If you're all a little bit more interested in more critical thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.